Can we get to chairs additions?
Okay, you on?
I can tell you
Thank you. I'd like to call to order this August 7th, 2018 Finance Committee meeting of the Ascension Parish Finance Committee. Thank you all for being here, especially when the weather is threatening. At this time, we will have the invocation led by Ken Dawson, followed by the pledge. If you will please stand and remain standing.
Let us pray. Father, again, we thank you for all that you do and the blessings you continue to bestow upon us. We thank you for living in a nation of freedom. We thank you for the ability, oh God, to serve. We thank you, oh God, for giving us wisdom to do the people's business well. And Father, we also thank you for our employees, and we pray for one especially tonight, Celeste Harris, who lost her sister, Claudia. We pray that you minister into their family, that you heal their wounds, oh God, and just pour into all the wine so that they would be soothed during this time of their bereavement. Now, Father, as we come, we thank you again for all that you continually do. And Father, we thank you for your wisdom and guidance here tonight, and for everything that you bless Ascension Parish with. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, Councilman Oliver Joseph is absent tonight, as is Councilman Travis Turner at this point. I'm not sure if Travis is arriving later, but I do know that Oliver is traveling. He's returning his daughter to Washington for school. Thank you, sir. There will be a one-chair addition. Mr. Daniels, would you please come and address this committee? I think you have an item that you want to add to this agenda, and if that is unanimously approved, then it will certainly be added.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the council. This is amendment number 6 to the Ascension Parish sewer in the Hillaryville-Darrow area. This amendment would allow us to actually take this project to bid, to get the bid documents, to put the project out for bid. It's not a cost increase. We're simply transferring $26,000 from task 1 to task 2. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
A motion by Councilman Kluot, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Are there any objections? Hearing none. I believe we need a roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Satterley?
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Kluot?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Turner, do you vote?
This is to have.
Councilman Turner, you
Yes.
want to vote? Yes.
The chair votes yes. So that item will be added. Mr. Daniels, we will do that in place of number, well, let's see, I don't have to do that at the end. At number 13, and let's call it 13A. And item number 12, because of an obligation of one of the members of the team that needs to leave early this evening, item number 12 will be handled prior to item number 5 in order to accommodate that. The public comment period before each item on the agenda is available to you. If you have something about which you wish to speak, please feel free to sign a card, turn that into the secretary. She'll get it to me. You'll have 3 minutes. We look forward to hearing from the members of the public who are here tonight. Now, we'll take item number 12, which has been moved ahead of number 5. And Kyle, if you'll please come forward. That's the renewal of a contract for janitorial services with Inman Enterprises, doing business as Jana King of Baton Rouge at Lamar Dixon. Contract amount not to exceed $200,000. Kyle?
Thank you. Yes, this is the Jana King contract for Lamar Dixon. They do our daily and event housekeeping.
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Aaron Lawler, a second by Councilman Kluwat. Any objections? Excuse me, any questions? Mr. Lambert?
Is that an increase from last year?
It is. And
By
then,
how much?
I think we're increasing by 50,000.
And why such a big increase?
More events.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Real quick.
Mr. Kluwat?
Kyle, while you're at the podium, we'll go ahead and close, but I want to remind everybody of the spectacular event that we got coming to Lamar Dixon, the Balloon Festival, here in less than a month. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Now, item number 5, Ascension Economic Development to introduce representatives for Project Bounty for participation in the ITEP under JBE 2016-73. Welcome, Kate. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. We have a project tonight that we started working on last fall. It's Project Bounty. It's an existing manufacturer that is looking to expand at their current location. They'd be creating 9 new jobs with $450,000 in new payroll and an investment of $160 million. This project started working on the economics of this potential expansion when we were under the executive order from Governor Edwards, and they are intending to pursue the program under that executive order, not under the new ITEP rules that are now going into effect. And since they filed their paperwork well in advance of the changes before they were even made, they qualify to be able to participate under the previous program. So that's why we're bringing it tonight with the 100% exemption of property tax for 5 years and 80% for 3 years. That full exemption would equal $14 million, and the overall direct economic impact of the project is $22 million. So that impact doesn't take into any indirect effects, any payroll effects, or any construction labor and payroll. That's just direct impact of sales tax and property tax. The sales tax estimate for the parish is $1.6 million during construction if this project happened, and that's before the operations even began. And then it'd be a collection of $5 million during the lifetime of this one project. The Board of AEDC has recommended this project for participation in the ITEP program based on the quality of the project and the company. So tonight we have representatives from Project Bounty with us. We have Mr. Kent Hartwig and Mr. Peter Gay that will be presenting some detail of this potential expansion, some of the competitor sites that we are up against, and why this project would be a great fit for the Geismar location.
Mr. Hartwig, Mr. Gay, thank you for being with us.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Kent Hartwig. I am a senior manager in corporate affairs with Renewable Energy Group.
And I'm Peter Gay. I'm the plant manager here at the Geismar facility.
And we do have a PowerPoint presentation if we could pull that up quick. So before we begin, I want to let you know that Renewable Energy Group is a publicly traded company, and so some of the things that I'll be discussing today are not finalized. They are not approved by our board. And so because of our publicly traded status, please don't use the information that we submit today as a reason to purchase or sell stock. So I'm not a registered representative or anything along those lines. So Renewable Energy Group is a company that takes waste fats and oils and vegetable oil and turn it into a renewable fuel or a renewable chemical. And so waste fats and oils could be inedible corn oil, used cooking oil, animal tallow, chicken fat, those types of things. And then raw veg oil would be from soybean oil or canola oil. We have 13 biomass-based diesel plants, and that kind of falls into 3 categories. 2 biodiesel plants, which are in Germany, and then we have 1 renewable diesel facility, which is our plant here in Geismar, Louisiana. The rest are situated across the Midwest, and they also produce biodiesel. So we'll be specifically talking about our renewable diesel facility here. This map shows our layout of where our plants are located. The green flags indicate what our production facilities are and where they're at. And if you look at the map, it's pretty clear that the biodiesel and renewable diesel industry was established where the feedstock is, where our waste oils and fats are created, and that's in the Midwest. So that's where a predominant amount of our production is located. You can see that the blue flags are our terminal assets, and so that's where we take our fuel to and distribute it to our customers. When I started with the company 3 years ago, there were only a handful of flags on the West Coast. And we have seen an exponential increase in those terminal assets on the West Coast, and that's strictly due to carbon policies. California, Oregon, and British Columbia have implemented policies which incentivize the usage and sale of our fuel. And so we are seeing a huge expansion in our ability to get fuel to market. And that is specific for our renewable diesel asset here. It's highly incentivized in California and highly desired by the petroleum industry and those who blend our renewable diesel with petroleum-based diesel. So now I'm going to turn it over to Pete to talk about our process.
So our process is a four-stage process. We bring in these different fats and greases, and the first thing we need to do is go through a pre-treatment process where we need to remove impurities. A lot of the fats that have different metals and salts and different things mixed in with the fat, and we need to remove those before we can put them into our process. Once the feed has been cleaned, it goes into our hydrotreating process. In our hydrotreating process, we are converting the fats into a paraffin, which is a straight chain hydrocarbon, kind of like the wax you'd have on a candle. We then isomerize that, and in the isomerization, we're making the modifications to make this a paraffinic diesel product. We also produce some other side products, LPG and naphtha, and so we go through a separation process in our fractionation system to separate out those products. So we currently have those three products that we're selling, LPG, naphtha, and our diesel fuel.
And so our renewable diesel is a hydrocarbon, and so when it's blended with petroleum diesel, it is essentially molecularly identical to petroleum diesel. And so that's one of the signatures of this product that makes it so desirable for the industry. Kind of a snapshot of our Geismar facility. We source feedstock from all over North America, bring it all into Geismar, and then produce it and ship it out. So predominantly the fuel is going to California. But just on our feedstock alone, it's about $150 million of value added to the economy. One thing I want to point out is the amount of truck and rail traffic that's going through here. We'll talk about some changes to our rail yard, but that's a significant number of trucking jobs that are also associated with our facility. And with any expansion, you would see more ancillary jobs associated. So kind of the background of the plant, this was the first renewable diesel plant built in North America. It was a Dynamic Fuels, which was a Centrolium, and Tyson built the facility. We purchased that in 2014, and then in 2017, we bought out our lease with Lion Copolymer and added 61 acres. So last year, we started the process of getting a footprint where we could have an expansion opportunity. And so earlier in this year, we submitted those two advanced notifications, one for the project that we're speaking about today, and one for a potential doubling of our plant. And as we discussed, we kind of have three areas of interest right now. The West Coast is where our product is going. That's where the market is. And so we have a facility in Grays Harbor, Washington, which is a large biodiesel plant. But we are looking at an expansion there or an expansion somewhere in the Pacific Northwest to be kind of a hub for a West Coast renewable diesel facility. Our REG Geismar facility has land to grow We have a knowledgeable workforce, the potential to have additional workforce that's very well knowledgeable in the petrochemical industry, and the history of creating renewable diesel. The third area would be our Seneca facility, which is on the Illinois River, and that is where our feedstock is. And so as we look at where our expansion opportunities are, we have where our market is, where our knowledge base is, and where our feedstock is. And so that's kind of our competing network of where to grow. And so if we were to look at our Geismar facility, we're going to be shipping in feedstock and shipping out product. And so that's why we're here talking about the tax exemption to continue to allow us the opportunity to focus on this facility. So what are we looking at? It's an expansion of our 75 million gallon plant for an additional 39, which will bring us to 121 million gallons. It's a $160 million project with 150 construction jobs and 9 full-time employees. So we're looking to expand our hydro treating and our pretreatment process, our rail yard, and additional electrical infrastructure, which Pete will now, and we're kind of in that third phase of our engineering. So our front-end loading could potentially end somewhere at the beginning of 2019, and finished fuel, if it were approved by our board of directors, sometime in mid-2020.
So this is a picture of the plant, and this shows our rail expansion. We currently have one rail track to bring in raw materials into our facility, and we're looking at expanding that to add 3 additional tracks to give us more capability for bringing in feedstock, looking at potential for being able to load some of our product on rail, and give us more flexibility if we're going to look at trying to expand the plant. So this would add an additional, we currently have 10 spots. This would give us, increase it to 46 spots. This would be a significant increase in our capacity to be able to bring in and support an expansion. As part of the expansion, we'd also would need additional power supply to run the additional equipment. So part of what we would do is look to bring in a new power distribution from the Monakeb substation and bring that power into a new electrical distribution building, which would then supply power to our existing facility and to the new facilities that we would be building. This is kind of an overview of the whole plant. The area in the center, the blue area in the center, is the current plant. The purple area outlined is the new plan that was purchased from Lion Copolymer, looking at being able to, in the future, to be able to expand. So over towards the river, you can see that we've purchased land along the river to give us the ability to look at putting in a ship loading dock where we'd be able to bring in feedstock and also ship product out. The land, there's an area just next to the blue shaded area. That's where we would plan to look at putting this expansion in. And then over on the right side, there's an area that's highlighted, which is closer to Highway 30, which would give us ability for additional rail yard in the future. So we tried to provide some additional access and capability to expand. So we've tried to set up our plant so that we can try to be successful and compete with other producers.
So that's all we have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll start on the other end. Mr. Turner, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Dawson?
No, I wanted to welcome them and wish them luck in locating that project in Geismar. And I'd like to make the motion that we approve and send it to the full council.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Dawson, a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself from this item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cluott.
Madam Chair, in full disclosure, I will recuse myself from any vote and discussion on this.
We understand. Thank you very much. So we have two recusals, Councilman Johnson and Councilman Cluott. We have a motion by Councilman Dawson and a second by Councilman Cagnolati. Are there any questions? Mr. Satterley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming. And as Councilman Dawson said, thank you for your interest in our community and expanding your existing facility. I just have a couple questions. Does REG have, what is the history of REG in terms of any pollution issues, in terms of what your track record would be, maybe let's say in the last 10 years? Has the company undergone any federal sanctions or anything like that we need to know of?
From a pollution standpoint,
Yes, sir.
I do not believe that we've been sanctioned by the EPA on.
So the answer is none whatsoever. Pretty clean country, company.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we're a green company. We produce a renewable fuel.
Right.
And so our intent is to have as low of a footprint related to our emissions as possible.
Does Willie Nelson own a lot of your stock?
We're not aware of who our shareholders are,
I'm just tongue in cheek. So in your presentation, sir, you'll talk about faulty damaged rail cars in terms of getting a bad order. What all does that mean? Are they leaking when they come in? Are they?
No, when we have a car that's bad ordered, it generally means that there may be a fitting that's missing on the rail car. It could be that brakes are bad, or there's a problem mechanically that the railroad does not want to ship that car any further without those repairs made. So if we had one that comes in and there's a problem with it, we hold it at the site until we can get somebody come in and repair it before we would send it off-site.
I got you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Mr. Lambert? No. Mr. Lambert?
I'm good.
Mr. Lawler?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Cagnolati?
Good.
The gentlemen who have recused are welcome to participate in discussions. Do you have any questions, gentlemen? I'm amazed.
I got a half an hour if you want to give it. I think everybody knows where I stand.
There we do. Thank you very much. All right. So we have a motion, a second. All the housekeeping is done. Are there any objections to moving this project forward to the full council with a recommendation for approval? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here. Item number 6, an update on the 2016 flood recovery. Mr. Rick Weber and Mr. Eric DeRoche.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, it's the 2-year anniversary of the flood, and had I give you this briefing about 60 days ago, it would have been pretty disappointing, but my staff has done big strides in getting our reimbursements back over the last 60 days. And as an example, you've got a memorandum in front of you, the temporary categories of work. Page 2, you see the graph that's there. That's an increase of about $3 million in reimbursements just under the temporary categories. But I want my staff to brief you on this. I want Michelle Rayborn to brief you on the temporary categories, and I want Eric to brief you on the status of our permanent categories and rebuilding of our structure. So let me call Michelle Rayborn up and have a brief you on the temporary categories. Michelle.
Michelle and Eric, welcome. We thank you so much for all your efforts on our behalf and look forward to your report.
Thank you. As he said, for what I've been working on, it's the temporary categories, which is Category A, debris removal, and Category B is the emergency protective measures. What you guys have is like an overview of all of the reimbursement requests that were submitted, and what I'm going to try to do is just give you a quick synopsis of what's been reimbursed, what's approved, what's been paid out. So the first thing is, the first page is regarding the projects that were under debris removal. 806 and 809 have always been, they've been paid out for quite a long time. So 807 is force account debris operations first 90 days. It was obligated at $583,468. Right now, the state has approved $505,210. When I say what the state has approved, there may be a reimbursement request that was submitted, but there is a portion of that is still being determined. So it's not that they're not going to approve the remaining balance, it's that it's a work in progress. So for 807, the $505,210 that the state has approved, we haven't received any of those funds yet. And the discrepancies for those were things that happened with labor and equipment regarding the horsepower and capacity. There were some rate changes that had to be done. GOSEP did some reductions. They had some findings on the daily logs versus the timesheets. So that amount was right around $46,000 that was reduced. About $31,913 of that was a trucking company that we had to do a cost analysis for, and GOSEP is saying they want to go a little further and do their own analysis. So once we get the findings from that, we'll be able to come back and let you guys know if they're going to reduce this reimbursement request by that amount, or if they're going to pay any of that other portion out. 808 is force account debris post 90 days. The federal obligated amount for the PW was $161,537. So far, the state has approved $67,695. For that one, it's pretty much the same thing, force account labor and force account equipment. There were duplications. GOSEP reduced in their findings regarding the daily logs, the timesheets, and the payroll policy. That amount was right around $5,000 that they reduced that PW, that reimbursement request. $88,769 of that is something that GOSEP is working on a cost analysis for. We're waiting for the determinations from that. That was Colonial Landfill. So we're just trying to do a cost reasonable to see if the rates we paid are reasonable with the rates they say they should pay. And once we come to a conclusion with that, they'll either reduce it or they'll pay the amount that we requested. 971 is force account debris post 90 days. That was the second phase of debris removal that we did. They paid everything out of that. When we wrote the original PW, they didn't include the days prior to when they started actually picking up the debris, which is when we did the site assessments to see where the debris was located. So they put that money back into the PW and paid it out. What they're not paying right now is something that we're going to have to submit as direct administrative costs, which is the days that were submitted for the work that was done to put all that documentation together to create the reimbursement request. So once we go through that, we should be getting the difference right there as well. And on the next page, page 2, is the emergency protective measures. The force account equipment, the PW that was obligated was $2,138,283. So far, the state has approved $1.2 million, and they've reimbursed $1.080. Again, like I said, the state approved amount doesn't mean that that's all that's going to be approved. It means that according to the reimbursement requests that I submitted, some of those dollars may be in a reimbursement request where a portion of it is still being worked through. The whole payment may be approved, but a portion of that may not have been approved, but the total dollar amount is being held up because of that portion. So that's number 4. Of that one, a large amount of that was reduced for the pumping stations. Under another project, GOSEP conducted a cost analysis. The commercial rates were what we submitted, And we should have submitted the FEMA schedule of equipment rates, which was the horsepower rates that caused the $688,000 reduction. Also included in that, we have about 250 grand, which is in step 6 of 8. I don't see any problems with that one being paid out. It's just going through the last 2 steps of that process before it goes to finance. The next is force account materials. $454,000 was submitted and obligated. Pretty much all of that, $100 and something dollars, wasn't paid out, and it might have been a shipping charge or other things. And of that, if you look in the reimbursed column too as well, I want to just remind everyone the reimbursed amount is the 90% reimbursement. So that amount is minus the 10% that we have to pay. Number 6, force account and labor. $582,000, $415 was obligated. The state approved $535,000, and so far we've been reimbursed $481,635. And for all the force account labor, force account equipment, it's pretty much the same thing. It was just discrepancies. GOSEP asked us to submit the horsepower and capacity, and that forced some of the amounts to be reduced. And force account contracts, 1.337 was obligated. So far, we have approved $373,000 and reimbursed $336,000. And for that one of the largest contracts that we had was with Brown and Root. And we're kind of in the final stages of going back and forth with that. We gave them the final documentation that they asked for, the supporting documents. And right now, we are going back and forth with GOSEP with about $44,000. So it's not that the whole thing won't be paid, it's just that portion is what's holding up the total payment. So once we have those determinations and submit that back to GOSEP, that one should be paid out. There is a multiple reimbursement request that was submitted and reduced by about $7,900. And that was a duplication, according to GOSEP, because it was for charges for repairs to the pumping station. The pumping station, the rates we paid included those repairs, so they just asked us to reduce the reimbursement request by that amount. Another $81,379. That's vector disease control. We are asking, that GOSEP is asking us to reduce it by $14,000 right now. And we're working through with mosquito control and legal to make resolutions on that. So as soon as we get the findings for that, that one should be either, paid out in full or paid out with a reduction. So in essence, we have 4 reimbursement requests that are still pending. Everything else has been paid out according to GOSEP's approval. And as Rick said, we have about $9.2 million in payments. We've spent about $10.2, and I would hope to say that at our next update, we would be past our payments and what we've expended. So with that being said, if you have any questions, I know there was a lot of numbers. It's a lot of data, details. I'm open to any questions.
Excuse me, Michelle, give them just a minute to review. Mr. Kluot.
Michelle, Rick, all of you guys, I want to thank y'all very much. Y'all been fighting a hard battle for a long time. Given what we've been through since Katrina, and then Gustav and Ike, and then this flood, that it's a constant thing about what you got to do to turn into FEMA. And the documentation is everything, and it gets very hard, and I know it goes back and forth. So y'all keep up the good work and keep trying. It's just a matter of paperwork, a matter of time, and sticking with the rates. You mentioned the horsepower and equipment and everything, and that's what it's based off, unit pricing. And so I want to commend y'all. This parish, y'all division, has continuously worked through every emergency we've had and worked it out to the end. So I got all the faith in the world in y'all winning this battle. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Rick, and all your team for what they've done. It looks, let's make sure, Michelle, that I have the numbers just summed up correctly. It looks to me like we spent $10.2 million, and the state's approved us at $10.4 million, and we've received about $9.1. Is that, am I correct in that, or?
If you look at the blue line, that's our expenditure line. The gray line is what we've been reimbursed thus far. We still
I
got a
can't
little.
see that line on.
It may be thin, but anyway, there's a gray line under an orange line. You should have a color graph, but the blue is a fixed cost, what we expended. The orange line is what was approved in the project worksheet, and the gray line is $9.2 million. So we're about $1 million south of the break-even point right now, and we should have well enough in reserve to get above it. Next briefing, I hope to be above that. But one thing I want to be clear is that the funding that you're getting now, we did not make a rapid reimbursement request on any project. So they're going through the audit process while they're doing it. So the chance of you retaining the money and in 4 years from now having to deobligate it and take it out of the general fund won't happen. So you should be able to retain the money that you take. That's why it's taking a little bit longer, but I prefer to do it this way than to have to deobligate money a little bit later on when we start closing these projects out. So it's been through an audit process already. That's why it's taking a little longer.
Is there any chance, Rick, of the 10%, or is that,
The numbers that you're seeing include the 10% reduction for temporary categories, not for permanent yet. Eric's going to explain that, but this does include the 10% match that we have to come up with.
Okay.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Yes, Mr. President.
Michelle, clarify that for me on the pump station work. We submitted the wrong
This is
fees or what?
This is what happened, Parish President. In Isaac, we got a cost reasonableness study, and we got the prices in the cost reasonableness study from GOSEP that said this is what it would cost if we had a commercial company to come out and put these size pumps in Ascension Parish. It was erroneously put into the project worksheet when we should have used the FEMA equipment schedule of equipment rate. So it was much higher commercially than it was for what FEMA would normally pay us for it. So we had to reduce it from
Was
that.
the pumps we put at Alligator Bayou or at our pump
Now,
station?
these are our major fixed pumps at Marvin Bro and at Henderson Bayou Pumping Station.
I know they keep changing the game. I mean, we got to stay on top of that because it costs money. But I tell you what, we got to applaud these people because if you remember not too long ago, Livingston Parish was in a lawsuit for $40 million. And Rick and them, they did the fast deal where they got the money and they were asking for the money back. We do it the careful way and it takes a little longer, but they do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Thank you, Rick.
Madam Chairman and Council, give y'all an update on the permanent categories, which is basically the buildings. Everything else that we've been talking about permanent work, we've been briefed on the other meetings, and they pretty much have come up to a close. The big things that's still remaining are the buildings, which were damaged. Santa Mar Rec Center, PJ's Landing, the Cancer Center, Fire Station 60, and Fire Station 61. If you look on the brief, on the second page, you'll see a bullet format. That is an 18-month timeline that we had to go through with FEMA and GOSEP's assistance. And I can't applaud GOSEP enough for the help that they gave us in getting to our ultimate goal. Initially, FEMA came in and said that Santa Mar Park Rec Center, PJ's Landing, was not substantially damaged. When we had our building officials go out, do an assessment based off of NFIP standards, they were substantially damaged. But FEMA PA side doesn't recognize FEMA NFIP side. So we went through a whole process, and Myers Engineering provided a tremendous amount of data going back and forth to FEMA and GOSEP, and an 18-month process took us to get FEMA to finally recognize and see these buildings are substantially damaged, or in FEMA's terminology, 50% roof. So we got that on July 23rd. Now, that was one hurdle. That was the major hurdle of getting the local FEMA JFO office, Joint Field Office, to recognize that as 50% rule. Now it needs to go to FEMA Region 6, Denton, Texas, and FEMA headquarters in DC for approvals before we can then start any work, design, demolition, or any rebuilding of those buildings. Now, with these buildings that are 50% ruled, if it is ultimately approved by FEMA headquarters, they will replace the building at actual cost for like, kind, and capacity. And what I mean is like, kind, and capacity. Currently, Santa Mar Rec Center is currently a metal building with a very small amount of brick veneer on the outside. Let's say for conversation's sakes, to rebuild that building is $2 million. FEMA and the parish administration, council, everybody agrees we want a better building than that. We want a total brick building and everything else. That building may come in and cost $3 million. Well, Ascension Parish is on the hook for 100% of that cost over and above like, kind, and capacity. So hypothetically, that's a $3 million building. You have $1 million you got to come up with, plus the FEMA 10% match, and the NFIP penalty of $500,000, just as an example. Don't know what the building's going to cost, but we're just using it as round numbers for conversation's sake so y'all can understand how much the parish may or may not be responsible for. That's going to be the same case with PJ's Landing. That's also going to be the same case with the fire stations. Now, the fire stations are a little different where they have flood insurance through their carrier. On Fire Station 61, we went back and forth with FEMA, and we asked for them to recognize that fire station as an actual fire station. If you may or may not recall, that building was purchased as a residential structure, put a fire station. They did some small modifications to be able to use it as a fire station. However, FEMA still recognized that only as a residential structure because they didn't do major structural changing into making it into a fire station. So if we were to get FEMA to change it, we would lose our 50% status and we will only get repair costs. So after evaluating that situation, it was determined the best option is what FEMA calls a 428 project, where we can take that money, use that money as improving it and building a new fire station. Then the fire districts and parish is responsible for that difference in cost for that building to be able to get them that fire station like they choose. And then this past Monday, we got some information on Fire Station 60. We have a lot of data that was submitted, gathered. We approved the data, and we made our official request to FEMA getting this additional data for them to be considered, and hopefully we can get a 50% rule on Fire Station 60 also. The preliminary data comes in from GOSEP that it will be 50% ruled. We just need to get FEMA local to agree to it so we can start that process. And that also has been an 18-month process. So it's a very slow process working with FEMA, but we have been fortunate that we got 2 buildings that we've been working on 50% ruled. Now we just got to get region and headquarters to make their approvals, and then we can then start moving with the planning of replacing those structures and designing and getting documents and all that together. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Kulak.
Yeah, once again, thank you. And I just want to know, we talked about GOSEP, and it's going to have to go to D.C. on final decisions and to the district. What about the Joint Field Office, FEMA Joint Field Office? Do we have some consistency in management there?
They've changed teams on a rotating basis. The longest a team can stay federally is 50 weeks.
Right.
We've been consistent with the same team. Is getting close. I'm looking for them probably in the next few weeks to the next couple of months to change team members. And so, but we have the current team recognized. So that was the big hurdle. So we have that. We got that recognition from the Joint Field Office at 50% rule. The new team comes in. They're not going to come back and change that because the locals already did it. It needs to go to region. And we get region and headquarters approval. That takes some time. I'm guessing 8 to 12 weeks. It could take longer. It all depends on how much projects they have in their local offices to get approvals. So, but we're going to stay constantly on them just to continue to try to get updates as much as we can.
Yeah, I just want to make everybody aware of the, as one agency, as a local agency within you guys, trying to deal with federal agencies that have a rotating door, and they all do, all the way to the Corps of Engineers and everything. And so to get some consistency in your message and let it stay, let it stick, get it in ink, and when they pass it on to someone else. So we appreciate the efforts.
Mr. Dawson.
Well, thank you, Eric. Can you, just real quick, can you explain to me what River Region, I read this, I can't figure it out.
River Region Cancer Center is the building in Sorrento.
Yeah, I know where it is, but what is this?
We have finally, in May of this year, FEMA obligated that PW. We got roughly $70,000, give or take, that we actually going to get. We had a $136,000 NFIP penalty. And after talking with the administration, the decision was to apply for what the FEMA calls an alternate project, is to take those dollars and we're going to take it and put it towards the NFIP penalty on the mosquito control building repairs, which was approximately $90,000. So we're going to take that money, offset that penalty on that project. And by allowing to do that, if FEMA approves it, we will then repair that building with parish dollars in-house. But the big kicker is we would not have the obtain and maintain insurance requirement on that building because we didn't use any federal dollars to repair it. It was used with all local dollars.
Okay. And it's going to become mosquito control, that's what
No. The money that's from the cancer center went to the mosquito control repairs. That's already took place.
So what is the cancer screening building going to be?
The administration is going to repair it, and they're going to turn it into offices or whatever.
Okay. I mean, it's not real
have several
clear.
in there, and when we totally sure on what I'm gonna put in there, we're gonna let y'all know. We were trying to figure out the cheapest way to fix it, and we're getting Mr. Dean's working on that right now, and then we're going to decide what to put in there. There's several agencies who might put in.
Okay.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Thank you so much for your thorough report and all your hard work for the last 2 years. All righty. Item number 7 is a review and discussion of an ordinance with the Development Code 17-2030. O'Neill, I want to make a comment here that there were, an item for review and discussion. There will be no vote taken tonight. It is strictly for review and discussion.
The first item is just a revision to the zoning code to create an overlay zone for solid waste management. That's all you're doing is adding that into the overlay zones.
So item number 7 is the Development Code, O'Neill.
Yes, it just
Okay,
adds,
so
it
it
creates
adds it
overlay
into-
zones.
Okay,
If you go forward with this, you would create a solid waste management overlay zone.
okay, I see. Ready? So then are there any questions about that, or should we go ahead and open our floor to discussion about item number 8, and then, of course, we'll have public comment on that, and then we can discuss 7 and 8 kind of together, I think is probably the appropriate way to do that. Everybody agree? Okay. So we will begin our public comment period. We thank you. I want to make a comment since we're moving on to item number 8. Now, this opportunity to have a discussion about solid waste in our parish is a result of a couple of things. One, that in the last few months, with the exception of our distinguished carrier, who I think is in the building. I mean, Dale is a provider of garbage service to our communities. He does a wonderful job. Nobody ever complains. But that is not true of both Republic and Waste Pro. There are some serious problems with them. And so we have a segment of our community that is very, very happy with the service they are getting with garbage, and we have a segment of our community that is very, very unhappy. And this body is responsible to all of those folks. So this is an opportunity for us to have some discussion about how we can best meet the needs of everyone. The second issue came to my attention in my district. I'm trying to, and a lot of things happen for this reason. Sometimes it's one person who's got a really significant problem, and you find out that there's a lot of it happening all over the parish. But in my district, I have a young woman who lives next door to a gentleman who gets his garbage all through his week. I'm sure it's in plastic bags. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And then when he finishes with it in his house, he just tosses it out the front door. And for now a number of years, he's been tossing his garbage out the front door, and he has a mini landfill in his yard. And there's rodents, and there's pests, and there's garbage all over his yard. And there is garbage in the ditch whenever it rains. And on more than one occasion, I've had to call DPW to go out there and, run a backhoe or whatever you call those monstrosity machines into that ditch and pull his garbage up out of the ditch and dump it back in his yard, so that, because we can't haul it all, and so that the drainage can happen on that road. So this lady reached out to me and she said, there's just got to be a way. And so we reached out to DEQ, and Doc was courteous enough to have the folks from DEQ come in and speak at strategic planning, I think on more than one occasion. You correct me if I'm wrong. And they pointed out, the lady who was here, that without an ordinance that requires people to have garbage in our parish, that there's nothing DEQ can do. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Doc. Was that her testimony?
No, it's not, Madam Chairman. Would you like me to relate what happened at that meeting?
Please.
Okay. With all due respect.
Please, I know.
Yeah. First of all, it's
my
not.
My memory could be failing.
Okay. First of all, it's not the DEQ that appeared in front of us. Who appeared in front of us was the, and this was at the behest of President Matassa, and as you indicated yourself with this singular case that you were having, and having empathy for that, and also there was a mini crisis going on there then, as we've had actually since, and I think we all know these crises appear periodically, but they are transient and they seem to be solvable. But who appeared in front of our committee, and this was on October 27th, 2017, since you asked, was Ms. Carolyn Bombette. She is the Louisiana Department of Health, not to be confused with the DEQ, Chief of Field Operations. Also appearing that night, and with all due respect, Terry, you were not on the committee then, so it's right, you don't know about it. But Chantel Jones, parish manager, also appeared. So it's on October 27th. And so I took, not the liberty, I was concerned to see when I saw this on the agenda, I thought we had laid this to rest. So I took a look at the film this afternoon, and you will see in there that Ms. Bombette stated on the record that actually there were 60 complaints in Ascension Parish in 2017 for which she dubbed quote-unquote nuisance calls, which means when we asked her, what's a nuisance call, she said things had gotten out of control, like you've just described with your constituent, with 60 residents piling up garbage when, they can't. And that does create health habits and so forth. There was no denial there. However, here's what I took from the meeting, and anybody can go back and look at this film, and I would recommend everybody do before we do anything knee-jerk this evening or beyond. There is a 4-step process that the Louisiana Department of Health follows in taking care of violators. And while we do not, as Ms. Casso correctly indicated, have a local ordinance, the question you can see at the end is, do we really need one with what the state has? The process is as follows. The Louisiana Department of Health will take over after a complaint is registered with them, so it's a state watchdog agency, with an issuance of what Ms. Bombette called, that's the LDH Chief of Field Operations, a notice of violation. That notice of violation has an allotted time frame for a miscreant, a violator, if you will, to clean up his or her act. Step 2, a quote-unquote reinspection will occur by the LDH officials to ensure that compliance is had as a result of their initial notice of violation. Step 3, if the garbage is still not cleaned up, a compliance conference, quote unquote, occurs with, and I believe in the film she used the term Mrs. Jones or whoever the violator is. That's not to indicate that was the person involved, but just to give us what's going on. Step 4, if that fails, the case proceeds to, quote, an administrative law judge who can issue fines and penalties. Nowhere, of course, was mentioned, like we're talking about in our current proposed law, any imprisonment. In fact, Ms. Bombette concluded, and I quote, I have never seen a case get beyond step 4. Remember, that's the administrative law judge. And only a few cases that have corrected, and only a few cases have been corrected in the, quote, compliance conference stage. That was step 3. So in other words, pretty much step 1 takes care of the vast majority of the problems, which is a notice of violation and then a reinspection. Problem solved. Bombette did not seek, Ms. Bombette, a parish ordinance, by the way, at the SBC. I asked her specifically. She indicated she appeared at the request of President Matassa, who asked me about it, and I was glad to do that then. Not glad to do it again. I'll be totally honest. My colleague to my right, Travis Turner, asked to look at this again. He wasn't on the committee back then, is now. And I said, we've already done that. And of course, we did this years ago as well as a full council in a little different venue. But here's the bottom line. As of October 27, 2017, as I indicated, Ms. Bombette said, the LDH Chief of Field Operations, we had 60 cases totally in the entire parish of Ascension, which is minuscule when you consider our population and number of people that have garbage. And actually, 43 of those cases had already been solved in phase 1 and 2, the notice of violation and reinspection steps. So that's what, 70-something%, and they were working on the remaining ones. So in my opinion, Madam Chairwoman, with all due respect, I don't believe we have a problem here. I think, frankly, we are doing something. I'm going to use Rahm Emanuel Paulance, who once said, quote, you never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. And Doc, sadly, Paulance, I would say, let's not fix anything that ain't broke. But I'm open tonight, as you are, to hear any discussion and certainly want to hear from the public. Thank you for listening.
Well, that's why we scheduled this meeting. And that's why I ask you to please refresh our memories about all of that. We want to have an honest discussion about our situation. That does not change the fact that we have had, and I'm sure the other members of this council will attest, and I think you can too, Doc. I mean, I saw all those emails that went to all of us from literally many families who had not had garbage pickup. And as I said, it is not about Dale's. Dale does a fantastic job. I wish he served the entire parish, but he does not. I recommended on television one day when I was interviewed by the media to, people were unhappy, please call Dale. But that is not a solution to this problem unless we talk about it, talk it through, see what we want to do. And we made, certainly a major part of that is listening to the public. We're listening to them via email. We'll listen to them tonight. We look forward to that. And as I said, absolutely no vote will be taken. This is strictly a matter of having us all understand what is happening in our parish and what we might be able to do to make the most prudent decisions based on the needs of all of our constituents. So I would welcome the opportunity for the public to speak. I'm going to go through these cards and just call them out. I'll remind you that you have 3 minutes. We're going to try to hold to that. If you're in mid-sentence, you can finish up. If you're going to start another paragraph, please refrain. We don't need to be here all night, but we do look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. First to speak will be Mr. Eddie Denham. Mr. Denham, do you have a garbage company too?
Yes, I do.
I have not heard one complaint about yours either.
VTS Garbage Service. We cater to seniors, disabled veterans, and handicapped people. Over the course of 1 year, we've been in business in September, it'll be 1 year. We've 800 and plus customers. All them customers have came from Republic and Waste Pro because they don't pick the garbage up. We do. I'm disappointed that y'all would even consider this piece of paper, whatever y'all want to call this. This is completely wrong. The people of this parish have a right to vote who they want as their garbage service. Y'all trying to take this away from these people. This is wrong. Y'all need to reconsider what y'all doing. And far as picking the garbage up, if you want to go after somebody that's not picking the garbage up, go after the two big boys, Republic and Waste Pro, because they're the ones that's not doing their job. Myself and Dale's are doing our job. You don't hear complaints about my service. You don't hear complaints about Dale's. The only ones you hear all over the news is Waste Pro and Republic. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, you and I agree. I agree. That's exactly who we hear the complaints about. We're going to hope to try to resolve this problem. Next speaker will be Miss Catherine Gobble. Excuse me, Miss Catherine.
Good evening, council members. As if your performance in taking care of roads, drainage, and sewer isn't bad enough, now you want to run garbage business too. Priorities, please. Why is the Finance Committee even discussing this issue? Is it topic appropriate? It's another money grab. This proposed ordinance is a hidden, undedicated tax increase of 10% for garbage collection to every resident, a government takeover of private business, turns the council into the garbage police, and imposes fines, possible jail time, or community service for non-compliance for every garbage collector who's given a franchise and each and every resident who fails to obtain a contract for garbage removal. I am not making this up. It's all here in black, white, and red. There are numerous, hopefully unintended consequences in this proposed ordinance. The council approves licenses of franchises yearly for collectors to pick up the solid waste. All approvals must be done by ordinance. The council can revoke a franchise at any time on the basis of, quote, anticipated performance. When the council revokes a collector's franchise for noncompliance, imagine weeks of garbage piling up in the streets of Ascension for any residents that was using that collector, waiting for the parish council to act. Free market solutions are better, like the valet garbage service recently offered by VTS for those who are not having their garbage collected in a timely manner. This ordinance is beyond punitive. It gives rise to the potential of every resident who does not have a contract and comply to these provisions doing 30 days of jail time or 4 8-hour days of court-appointed community service and being fined $100 to $500. Each day constitutes a separate offense. The parish can recover actual damages, costs incurred, reasonable attorney fees, and litigation costs. The collector shall pay a 10% franchise fee quarterly to the parish office. The council can change the collector's agreement or modify it from time to time to include such additional provisions as the parish council may deem necessary or advisable, essentially unfairly taking over a private enterprise. Do you really have time, members? And do you really want to become the garbage police? Council members will serve on boards, manage, enforce, and ensure that all residents and collectors are compliant. In instances of noncompliance, councilmen, board members will first contact by person or phone the residents or hauler and advise them. Second, send a written notice by certified mail, and finally, after 30 days of noncompliance, resort to any and all civil and criminal sanctions. All fines will be paid into the parish treasury and deposited into a criminal court fund to be distributed in accordance with the statute. Half of this surplus on December 31st of each year should be transmitted to the parish general fund. How will that money be spent, and what happens to the other half? The ordinance doesn't answer these questions. Keep on destroying public trust. This will not solve problems, but certainly create more. Thank you, and please put my comments in the public record.
Thank you, Ms. Gobble. Chase Malasa.
Yeah, I'm here to speak against it. I love capitalism and I love property owner rights, and this is a clear invasion of both of them. We're charging individually privately owned businesses 10% just to be able to do business in our parish. And off the top of my head, I don't know if we do that for anything else. I don't know who else we make pay us to be able to do work here in our parish. And as far as I know, I believe we have 4 different options. Me personally, I use Dale's. I tell everybody, if you don't, after weeks and weeks, you don't call Dale's, that's your own personal, choice right there. The free market allows you to call whoever you want. Dale's picked up my garbage the day after Christmas, the day after New Year's, when kids were out of school, when the roads were closed, my garbage got picked up. I have zero complaints. And I heard from whenever Doc was talking, he talked about the 60 calls, roughly for 2017. And I believe we have roughly 20,000 homes in Ascension Parish, give or take a little bit. So that's 100% of the people who are having an issue with a bad neighbor. Punishing everybody for a few people is not the best thing to do. And where else does this stop? At what point do we have to start babysitting guys who cut grass, landscapers? What if they don't come cut my grass every week like I'm paying them? Is that something else that we're going to take in? And I just don't think y'all have enough time. Y'all are stretched thin enough as it is with the responsibility you have. Like Ms. Gobble said, you do not need to be garbage police. One of the biggest issues I got is saying that you cannot get your certificate of occupancy for your new home. I don't know when was the last time y'all built a home in Ascension Parish, but it cost me just south of $3,000 to Ascension Parish to ask for permission to build on my land that I paid for. And so now you're telling me I can't move into that home, that investment, unless I do garbage business with somebody y'all tell me I have to, only because they paid y'all a 10% tax fee, which is going to come out of my pocket. Because I would love to hear from anybody who specializes in economics that whenever a company gets hit with a tax rate, that it doesn't trickle down to the consumer. And as far as the development code, is it up to each council member to decide what socialist garbage service we're going to have, like, all 11 districts? And then 4 8-hour work days, if I don't oblige, pay $100, $30 jail time. The fact that the word jail is in there is mind-blowing. And the last thing I'll leave you with is taxing the people to get government out of debt is like standing in a bucket and trying to pick yourself up by the handle. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ricky DePlessis.
Well, here we are again. I don't know where this is ever going to end. Most of you people couldn't get in one of our trucks and turn it around in Walmart parking lot. We forgot more about garbage pickup than you people know. I drive for Dale's. I'm sure all of you know that. We don't need y'all help. We got this. And for the lady who's had all the trouble with the trash in her yard, go after them. Don't bother us. You hear what everybody's saying here tonight. And mandating that we do stuff that we don't do, our job is we give you a can, we pick up your household garbage. We're not here to pick up your couch. We're not here to pick up the stuff that y'all should be picking up because y'all have a grapple truck. People pay taxes in this parish. That's a service y'all should provide. If somebody's got a couch they need to get rid of, if y'all want to be so much like wherever y'all modeled that paper off of, go there. But don't ruin Ascension Parish. There's more people moving from those parishes coming here than there is here leaving going there. Don't turn this into the mess that other people are leaving. Leave us alone. We got this. We need no help from y'all. We got this under control. Mandating us that we have to do something we're not in business to do is like telling your mechanic, well, after you fix my brakes, you also need to fix this dent in my fender and paint it too. That's not what he does. It's not what we do. And for you to mandate this, it's like a dictatorship. We're not going to stand for it. And as far as the thing in there about if I don't have a signed contract, I could go to jail. I don't have a signed contract. I drive for Dale. I got 2 cans. But you're going to make me have a signed contract? Yeah, we could pencil whip it and make it look like I'm paying for garbage service. I'm not the problem. You need to go after the ones that's causing you problems. It'd be like me getting a speeding ticket here on the way here, but give all of y'all one too. You're punishing the good for the bad, and it's got to stop. I used to be proud when I went out of town anywhere, and people ask me, man, where are you from? Well, I tell them, man, I'm from Sandoval. Where is that? It's a little town in Ascension Parish. And they Google Ascension Parish. It don't look good. A lot of the politics and stuff that goes on in this parish, man, I go out of town now. I hope nobody asks me where I'm from. And I hope they don't Google it. The old people used to say, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Y'all need to do that. Y'all need to leave this alone. You can put whatever percentage fee you want, franchise fee you want. If a guy's not going to make it to work and pick up your garbage, it don't matter how much you're charging them. It ain't going to improve the service. You're going to cost everybody in this parish money. And what are they going to have to show for it? Nothing. a higher garbage bill. First, they're gonna be mad at us, but we're gonna give them y'all number. This isn't anything we're doing. We're doing everything we're supposed to do, by the book. And if I wanted to have a garbage service with somebody, and that man wanted to bring me a 1/4-inch can that weighs 600 pounds with no wheels on it, and I gotta drag it to the road with my tractor, that's between me and him. It's none of y'all business. What kind of can we got? Y'all just taking away too many of our rights, and it's got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lou Goppel. Oh, I apologize, Mr. Goppel. I see you had checked you did not desire to speak. Jeff Pettit.
Good evening. On February 4th, 2013, a garbage pickup ordinance was proposed before the Strategic Planning Committee. That proposal included a 1% fee and no criminal penalties. That proposal went nowhere. The proposal before you tonight includes a 10% fee. Why? Can anybody answer that? This is nothing but an additional tax and a money grab by this council. The waste vendors will pass this so-called fee on to the citizens. This proposal also includes criminal penalties, $100 to $500 per day, or up to 30 days in jail, or 4 8-hour days of community service picking up trash along the roadways for each violation. Each day that you're not in noncompliance is a violation, according to this proposal. Which one of you is going to vote to rob your constituents of money, time, or put them in jail? This proposal was ill-conceived, ill-prepared, not well thought out, and has not been taken to the community before today. I find this proposal, as written, to be offensive. This is nothing more than an attempt to get a foot in the door on the road to this council, forcing exclusive franchise garbage pickup on the citizens of Ascension Parish. And it's a naked money grab, adding a tax disguised as a fee on the backs of the citizens of Ascension Parish. You need to go after the service providers and not the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dustin Kluwat. He has a baby at home, doesn't he?
A new baby.
Travis.
Rowdy.
Rowdy, that's right. Travis Joyner.
Accurate. How y'all doing tonight?
We're
I'm
good,
not
sir.
going to repeat everything everybody else already said. Basically, what I want to get to is you want to make people go by what you want, but you don't listen to what the people want y'all to do. So you want these big corporation companies to overweigh these small companies. That's all you're doing. You're allowing these big corporate companies to take control of what we were originally made of and brought upon. I just don't agree with the way that, you know, you're going to make VTS or Mr. Dale pay a tax because your complaints don't want to get trash. Find them. You're able to. Do it. That's all you got to do. I'm not going to want to pay that tax. They're not going to want to pay that tax. All the taxes that we got to pay already is retarded. It's outrageous. I mean, just think about it. I'm for a no on this. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you very much. Robert Dale Hidalgo.
How y'all doing tonight?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Oh, great. Well, I can't echo too much more what they're saying. You know, our service speaks for itself. I'm glad you've seen that, Miss Terry.
I have.
Up in here. But I'm here to represent about 10,000 customers that we do pick up right now and service. I have the concerns of this overlay. I don't understand the overlay. How are y'all going to do this, O'Neill, of separating parishes? Or I don't understand this overlay program. What's it about?
The idea is to have districts, and whoever wants an overlay can have one, whoever doesn't have that.
Okay, so that's gonna be for each councilman's gonna have an overlay?
Or they can join together and do it.
Okay. I just didn't understand this part of the process, what y'all was doing there, overlay. You know, it should have just went to each district, huh? Is there a reason you have them terms, overlay?
Because they said they didn't want to do it east side wide, so some did and some didn't. So if you want to do it, you
Oh,
can.
okay.
If you don't,
Okay.
you don't.
Well, that's basically what we're doing. You know, we object to these ordinances. We don't like any of the articles in this ordinance. It's, a lot of it doesn't make sense. I don't know where they come from, but a lot of things is really bad. And we don't like the 10%, for sure, on to that and to there. And basically, that's about what everybody else is saying. If, you know, I've done told a lot of people here, you know, the small problems I hear that y'all have, people not having garbage. I think Mr. Randy told me he's got problems with garbage in the canals and stuff like that. Maybe we could work together and figure out something to do with this without passing this ordinance, because it's basically gonna hurt the people, you know? And to have a few calls that y'all had with the people that's missing with Republic and Waste Pro, when you get one company in this parish to try to do it, imagine the calls y'all have. But that's all I'm deciding. If y'all need anything, I'll be glad to try to help y'all.
Thank you, Dan,
there.
very much.
Thank y'all now.
Thank you. Eli Brooks.
Miss Terry, I'm from your area.
Yes, sir.
And I'm totally against this.
Thank you.
Because anytime you go on level a tax against your citizens, you better think twice. Because people are about fed up with all this. Y'all come up with this here, and you're going to tax the people. Or you're going to put them in jail. Well, I had a problem with my garbage being picked up. I didn't call you. I don't need to call you. I don't need to call any of y'all up here. I take care of my own business. I called the headquarters. This morning my garbage was picked up. But I will change. And that's my position to change, not your position to make my decision to change. None of y'all can make my mind up to do what I want to do. And if I get arrested, somebody's going with me to pick up trash.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Eli, for that. So that's all the comments I think we have. Excuse me?
I was supposed to take Dustin Kluwat's comment time, but I filled out a paper, so I didn't.
It doesn't indicate
My name
what
is Joel
item.
Robert.
Okay, well, please,
Yes,
feel
ma'am.
free.
7217 Highway 44, Gonzales.
Thank you.
I mean, forgive me, I could say I'm flabbergasted, but I'm not. It's not a surprise. It's really disappointing. The fact that you're going to sit here and you're going to tell me the way to fix a problem is to go complete opposite direction and do something different. I mean, there's such a thing as capitalism. There's such a thing as free enterprise in the world. I mean, it's what makes the world go around. This is basically a slick way. You're passing a tax, but you're doing this to get your 10%. You know, I get that. You're going to get your 10% from these garbage companies that are going to do that. You know, sounds a lot like a Cadillac tax. Kind of sounds like something we've heard about a few years ago. But the problem with y'all getting your 10%, instead of just taking it from us now, you're taking away our right and our decision to use who we would like to use in a free market. Because if you like Dale's garbage service, and that's great, I think it's great that you're promoting him in public. I mean, that's what we do in our parish. And you want him to do the whole parish, the best way for that to happen is to stay out of business, get away from it. He's providing a great service. Guess what? I'm switching to him tomorrow. To be honest with you, before I came to this meeting, I had Republic. When I had Republic, I had an issue with them. I did like the gentleman did before me and called them. Didn't have a problem with them anymore. The next time I did, I canceled my garbage pickup. You know, and I don't throw my garbage in the middle of the road. I don't throw it in the ditch. And the fact that we're going to pass a 10% tax on the people, because it's what it is. It's a 10% tax on the people. I'm a businessman. If somebody puts a 10% tax on top of what I'm doing, guess what I'm doing? It gets passed right on to the consumer, and they don't have a choice anyway. They have to use you. You know, I mean, if you want your 10%, get it a different way. Don't take away our rights in the process. I mean, with the guy who lives next door to your constituent, what I would do, and I mean, I'm not even a representative there. I mean, I'll do it if you tell me who it is. I'll go speak to the gentleman. I mean, there's such a thing as diplomacy. I mean, you use this and work with this guy. And you know what? If he doesn't want to work with you and he doesn't want to clean up, he's got bad intentions. He's going to have to pay the consequences. And there are consequences. I promise you. We are in 2018. There's no way in Ascension Parish that someone can throw garbage out in their front yard and we can't do anything about it unless we pass a 10% tax. I mean, in no way or shape or fashion does that make sense to me. And I'm not asking for y'all to tell me how, because it doesn't make sense. And I'm calling you out right now and saying, this is an insult. It's a slap in the face to the people. And for you to sit here and say that you think it's going to make everything better, it's very disappointing. And it's why people are going to get into government now.
Thank you so much. We look forward to that. Me
too. Thank you.
I don't have it, Teresa.
It was late.
It was late, I'm sorry. The speaking had already begun. The comment period was closed.
She can't speak.
The comment period was closed.
I put in my card and I just voted.
We need to let her speak. We really do, man. Make the public more mad.
Well, I'm more than happy. If that's the will of this body, we're happy to do that. Everybody good? Ms. Robert,
Good.
please.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not going to take 3 minutes. I just want to say real quickly that, as others have said, this seems like it is a tax. And although it's not really a tax, it's just going to be raising the cost to the consumer and that to the businesses, and they will pass that to their consumers. It's really interesting because I think this is the 4th time in 5 years that this council's come up wanting to do this. Getting the waste business is what we would like to say. And I would just like to suggest to you that the parish does not need to get in the waste business. You have a lot of things on your plate that with infrastructure and roads and sewage, et cetera, that you're not quite there yet to do a good job. So spend your time doing that. I'd like to say that citizens have the choice to use who they want. They're quite capable of it. The free market does work best. It will add the cost, as we said, to citizens. We ask you again, as the other ones have said, go after the bad ones. Don't penalize the good ones. It seems that it's the big corporate companies that are the ones that are the bad ones. Support our local ones, like you're saying tonight. And I'd just like to close in saying people want less government, not more. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Robert. Gentlemen, certainly I'm open to hear more discussion from this body. I want to say I appreciate the folks who were here tonight. I thank you for all your comments. This is what government's all about. You getting to come and say what you think. We have, this ordinance is a draft. It was proposed. It was a place to start with a discussion. We will see where that goes in this body tonight. And we thank you for the opportunity. There certainly is no vote that will be taken here, as we said earlier. And we are just seeking solutions, making the public aware, not only of how good some of your service is, but how bad some others have been. So at this point, Mr. Lawler, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. First of all, I mean, I've looked at this, and I hear a lot of talk about forcing one provider on the parish. I just don't see that. That's not the intent of myself or anybody that I've talked to about this. I think a lot of people seem to have been misled, which is a shame that people get misled so easily. One of the, I do believe that we have a problem with garbage pickup in this parish. It's 2 companies that we've had the problem with consistently, and we get calls. I get calls 3 to 4 times a week. What can you do about this? What can you do about this? The problem is we can't do anything about this, and we're looking at this as a step, a discussion. I mean, that's what this is. It's a discussion about, is there a way that we can look at the providers that we're having problems with and do something about it? If it's a fine, if it's a pulling of a franchise, a license, whatever it may be, something has to be done, because we constantly get phone calls, I didn't get my garbage picked up. And we tell them to call other providers. They don't always do it. but there's something that has to be done on this front. You know, I'm not in support of a 10% franchise fee. I have a question for O'Neill. Do we have to have a franchise fee to have the ability to find these providers?
No, the franchise fee was included because it's got to be some administrative expense. It doesn't have to be 10%. That's what I was told just to start there. So that's what I put in the ordinance originally. You can have a franchise fee, but you have to have some permit operation, and there's got to be some expense to maintain this operation because somebody's going to have to deal with all this stuff.
No, I understand that. I was just
But no,
seeing
10%
what was
is
doing.
just a starting point so I was told to put that in the original ordinance.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'll be quite honestly, I haven't talked to anybody on the council that supports 10%. Anybody that I've spoken to about this says this should be, you know, nominal per se, just giving us the ability to talk to the providers that aren't providing the service that they should be providing. We also have an issue, and it's not just with people throwing trash in their front yard. I have people in my district that for some reason think it's okay in a neighborhood to burn their trash in a backyard. I'm not talking limbs. We should be able to burn our limbs, burn our grass. All that's fine. I'm talking garbage, milk cartons, egg cartons, all that kind of stuff in the backyard. People need to pick up trash. And, you know, if these people can't afford it, you know, call Dale's and see if they have any pro bono service. Something that they can, you know, help for the people that can't afford it. You laugh, but attorneys have pro bono. Doctors do pro bono. I think every profession should be willing to do some pro bono work for the people that can't afford it, to give back a little bit to the community there. You know, if this thing goes forward, there are a couple things I'd like to see. I'd like to see, with regard to the commercial companies, any provider out there, that they'd have to provide notification within 30 days of any missed collections, the number of households that they missed, and the number of days the collection was delinquent. Because I can understand any company may have a situation where they miss a couple houses. But I know we had a situation in my neighborhood where they missed 250 houses for 2 weeks straight. That's unacceptable. We had areas in my district and other districts that they missed for 4 weeks straight after Christmas. And I said it at the time, Christmas is not a surprise. It's been around for 2,000 years. It's on my calendar. If you don't have it on your calendar that we're going to have a lot of trash that day, you've got a problem. So this is what I'm looking at as a way to talk to those people, those providers that are not doing their job. We need to have the ability to do something about that. Dale's is doing a great job. VTS is doing a great job. I hear great things about y'all all the time. And this is not, you know, I don't know where some of y'all got where, hey, this is just to limit who we can use. I mean, I have an idea of where we got it, but yeah, it's inaccurate. And people make things up, and I think that's a shame that people are going to mislead the public that way. But that's not our goal. It's not my goal. It's not nobody I've talked to. It's not their goal. Now, one of the things that personally I have an issue with is we have a problem with our roads. And we need to look for a market solution. And that's one of the things that I'm encouraging every subdivision to do is to look at a market solution. And that's, hey, can the subdivision, homeowner association, whoever it may be, come together and talk to VTS, talk to Dale's, because those seem to be the only two that are doing a good job, and see if y'all can come in our neighborhood and be the provider for that neighborhood. Because right now, in my subdivision, we have 4 companies. We have got garbage trucks from Monday to Saturday. Do you know what that does to our roads? Do you know how annoying that is that every single day there's a garbage truck? I can tell you, that's horrible. It's terrible for our roads, and we hear the complaint all the time. We don't have enough money to take care of our roads. But we also have to do something to make our roads last longer. And that's a private market solution. That's you know, capitalism is these homeowners associations maybe should get together and talk to these providers and see if they will come to our neighborhood and be the sole provider for that neighborhood, give us a better rate. And that's one way to do it, to get some of these off of our roads. And that's a very important aspect to this. Because right now, the garbage trucks are ruining our roads, and we got to put a stop to that, whether it's leaking fluids that are corrosive to asphalt or just running over the roads constantly. One of the things I did hear, though, and this was talking about a transfer of surplus funds. My thought is, if there are surplus funds that are left over at the end of the year, that it would not go into a general fund, I would ask that if this is the route we go, that they go into a maintenance fund for neighborhood roads. Because that's where we have a tremendous problem, is maintaining our neighborhood roads. And if there are any funds that are collected from this, that those funds go into that maintenance. There's nothing we can do.
Illegal. It's a collection of fines. 50%. Right now, there are no surplus funds. You are funding the criminal court fund. But the state law requires that criminal court funds, 50% go into one, and they're dispersed between the sheriff, the district attorney, and the court system. The other 50% goes into the parish system, into the general fund. Now, you can from there designate, but state law designate where criminal fines goes.
But you're talking about criminal fines. I'm talking about, I know there was talk about a franchise fee. I certainly don't want anything that's going to be 10%, but if we did 1%, which, 1%, it's my understanding that Dale's charges $24 a month thereabout. That's 24 cents a month for the average home. I think that's something most of us can afford. If there's anything left over of that after any administrative fees, can that be,
Absolutely.
put into a transportation fund?
Absolutely. You can designate where it's going to go.
Okay. That's all I have to say on it right now, but I'll open the floor for anybody else that wants to speak.
Other comments? Mr. Kulak?
Yeah, it's no secret that I'm not in favor of this proposal that's in front of us tonight, but I constantly believe that necessity is the mother of invention, that you do have a problem, that we look toward the problem and work it out. While we can't penalize the non-performers in the garbage business, definitely their poor performance will penalize them in the long run, and that's been stated here tonight. When people send us an email or call us and complain about a service, that's a private provider. And look, it's not just the garbage, it's water, it's multiple private providers that we have to go run interference for people and try, because we asked you guys to represent you in this parish. So I propose that whatever committee it is that, we've got a couple folks couple companies that we got problems with. So, I don't know if it's this body, the council as a whole, strategic planning, utilities, or whatever, that we challenge those folks to come forward. We can have the people get their day in court, and let's hear what these folks got to say about their business. And they ain't got nothing more than what they got to say now. Then we need to figure out some way to get them out of the parish. And that's the bottom line. And what O'Neill, you'd stated earlier, we really don't have any.
We have no authority to
No
do anything.
authority
We
to
have no
run 'em out.
regulation of it at all. There's
Other
nothing
than,
we
other
can
than
do.
licensing, right? At
Right.
this
We have
point?
no license.
No.
The only thing they have is an
State
occupational license, and they don't.
Occupational.
As long as they pay their taxes, they
That's
can
what I'm
keep
saying,
that.
other than the occupational license.
Right.
But we can't pull that.
Not if they pay their taxes.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, I'm saying there's other ways to go ahead and skin this other than and try to take care of the problems. I've had multiple emails. Hell, I just talked to Dale the other day. My garbage service is not really up to par, okay? I figure where I'm at, I'm the forgotten one. I don't know. You'd mentioned 250 houses missed for 2 weeks. In your area, they might could travel less than a quarter mile and miss into several big subdivisions, 250. You missed 250 houses in Santa Monica. You done traveled about 4 miles. You know what I mean? So you really lost. So what I'm asking is there a way to get these folks, because at this point, I don't remember any public body where those companies were brought in or asked, they can participate or not participate, asked to come in and explain what are they going to do to tighten up their service to the people of Ascension Parish, wherever. And I don't know if this is even feasible. That's just common sense stuff. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Randy, very much. Mr. Bill?
Thank you. I didn't look at the cards. All I saw was red. Was there a green card? Not a green card. So, that tells us, I think, if somebody was having a severe problem, they didn't bring it here tonight. So everybody that brought a red card here, they don't think we have that much of a problem. And, I'm glad that we got the input because, we'd heard some different things. And I'm not sorry that we listened to that tonight. I think we need to go back to the drawing board you know, this is not the solution. And therefore, I'd make a motion that we postpone indefinitely this. And I agree with Randy. We need to look at what we're going to do with the ones that we're having trouble with. But I also agree with the majority of people that were here that it's not punish everybody.
Yeah. I'm going to second that.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to explain why, Madam Chairman.
If, please.
Thank you. We just heard from a councilman just moments ago that something has to be done. This is going to appear really odd to most people that know my relationship with the individual, but I absolutely agree. Something does need to be done. And this is what it is. I've already said it before the public even spoke. We do not need to use these mini crises from a manual, right, that invariably resolve themselves anyway. What we need to do is just let the mini crises go to waste, because we don't need, as I said, to fix anything that's not broke. Let me address burning. Same councilman talked about it. Did you know, in front of strategic planning, when that gentleman sat with me, we considered that as well. And actually, I think he was somewhat supportive, at least in the beginning, but we didn't have the support to pass a burn ordinance. Can you imagine that? A burn ordinance in the entire parish of Ascension. Gonzales has one. We were told by committee members the state of Louisiana has burn ordinances. So you don't need one in Ascension Parish. We could just use them. Does that sound familiar to anyone? The state also, through the LDH, I just talked about 60 cases, 43 already resolved. We have a state watchdog agency. We have laws there. It is true what one of the speakers said. I see him smiling. You were right, sir. You can't just go pitch your garbage out into the street and get away with it. Maybe the problem is we're not complaining to the right sources, or maybe we're not telling our constituents the right people that they need to complain to get resolution. Burning trash. Missing collections, the gentleman said, excuse me. The gentleman talked about missing collections. We got to do something about that. Once again, I agree. But does anyone here tonight amongst the public or this council think that it's going to stop with these big, giant companies like Republican Waste Flow through government franchise garbage collection? No, it's not. We can get Mr. Dale back up here, and I'm sure he's going to tell you about the, not millions, billions of dollars they make because they're nationwide, not just in Ascension. I assure you, they will absorb the teeny little fines you can give them. And I'd like to see us actually put any of them in jail. It's going to do nothing, and it's going to happen again. And guess what? When we leave here tonight, 2 or 3 weeks from now, we're going to have another mini crisis. Are we going to go, as Miss Robert said? I thought she kind of put the topping on the dropping tonight. Couldn't resist. I'm an old poultryman. This is the 4th, 5th bite at the apple. And I hope this motion we just had from Mr. Dawson is meaningful. In Robert's Rules of Order, a motion to postpone something indefinitely is 99% of the time a death sentence to the issue. Let's let it end tonight.
Thank you for that, Doc. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other speeches that need to be given tonight? Mr. Turner.
We do have a couple of quick comments. I understand that we have Dale operating in parts of the parish. VTS, do you operate in District 3? Do you operate in District 3? I know the issue. A lot of, I understand we have people here that's saying that Dale's is great, this, that, and the other. But for most of my district, we want to have the 2 large companies, and I get calls consistently saying that they're not picking up the trash. So they want something done. So in my opinion, something does need to be done, at least for certain parts of the parish who are having issues with those 2 main companies not picking up trash for 2, 3, or 4 weeks at a time. Because they didn't pick mine up at one point for 2 weeks, and I had a wife at the house fussing mad because the trash is not getting picked up, wanted me to do so. And I couldn't even get away from that person because she's right there. So something does need to be done as far as having those companies to do their job. And I did approach Doc to bring something to the street planning as far as what needs to be done. And my idea was just mainly, well, I'm not really in support of how it is written now, but my idea was mainly to some type of franchise fee or a license that the companies would pay just to operate in the parish, but not a large fee, and that to get that license, they would have to submit their routes and their customer list. And once those are submitted, that if at any point a certain number of those customers, a certain percentage of those customers' trash was not picked up at any given amount of time, then at that point, the parish could start fining that company for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That was just my idea we threw out there, and we was just brainstorming, trying to figure out something to do to help those part of the parish who doesn't have DALs. But now I know we have VTS, throughout the parish. And I don't think a lot of people in my district knew that was an option. Most people in my district only knew the two large companies that we had, and they weren't happy with either one. So, what's the point of switching from a D company to an F company? You still got bad service. There was really no other option, and that's all I have to say on it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comment?
Terry.
Yes.
Yeah, I object to the motion to table it, only because, kind of like what Travis was just saying, Councilman Turner was just saying, is that a lot of us have acknowledged that we have a problem. There's a problem with the bigger companies. I don't see where the harm is in discussing possible solutions. I think Travis alluded to that, is that there are other options out there. If we want to shut down discussion on things, it's not the democratic way to do it. You discuss things, try and find a solution to it. And I don't see any purpose in giving this a 99% chance that we just ignore a problem that we all acknowledge is out there. So I'd rather see us have the ability to discuss this, come up with some other ideas. No, this is not a perfect idea. Nobody up here thinks it's a perfect idea. I don't think anybody here today would vote for this right now. But I do think we've acknowledged a problem. Let's not stick our heads in the sand and just ignore it. Let's see if we can find a solution. So I object to tabling this. I think it's something that we should continue to discuss, over time. Doesn't have to come back at the very next meeting, but let's continue to try and find a solution to this problem, because, as Travis said, there are parts of our community that may not have access to DALs. VTS is going to cover the whole community, but we have a lot of people that need help on this. Absolutely. And if we can find a way to help them, let's do it.
Yeah,
I don't want to do advertising on here right now.
I've done enough advertising tonight, but I'm trying to help my constituents to
So
understand.
I object to the motion. I'd like to keep this alive.
I got you. Absolutely. Mr. Lambert, please.
Yeah, I've probably been with Dale ever since he's been in business, and I haven't had the first complaint with him. Just want to kick that in. But as far as a solution, we are meeting with Republic, a few of us this week, and I think that's the start. We need to get to these guys and let them know that our constituents are not, the service that they're providing is not up to par, and they need to step it up a notch now. Maybe just this conversation with the big dogs, maybe they can.
That's right.
Hopefully make a difference. So we're going to start off with Republican. If we need to keep going, as a subcommittee, we can keep moving on it. So we are meeting with Republic this week, so to discuss these issues they have.
Madam Chairman?
If you'll give me just a moment,
Sure.
Mr. Satterley, I hope the public will understand that we're aware that we're having this meeting coming up. Sometime we need to do things to set the tone for a meeting that's coming up. And we need people to understand that we're not going to tolerate the kind of service that our community has been getting in the recent past and frequently over the years with these little mini crises, as Doc wants to call them. I will differ with him. I do not believe that in any way, shape, or form this was discussed tonight in order to further any agenda. The object is to try to solve a problem, and we have obviously more than one of us up here who represent districts who have suffered with this problem. We don't have access always to all of the services that are provided to some of the more rural communities, like Dales and BT. Let me say it one more time right. BTS. Okay. So, we want to move forward. I've got to figure out now procedurally. I have an objection to the motion, so we will have a Roll call vote, please.
So is discussion over with?
Yes, sir. We're going to have, I'd like to,
Because I would just like to say I appreciate Todd Lambert and what he had to say, and I'd recommend, Todd, that whoever you're going with, I'd be glad to go with you, number one, and if not, please take a copy of this film and give it to Republic and give it to, I think that'd be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
that's our intention. So we have a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
They were voting yes, we're going with
The vote.
That's to postpone indefinitely.
no.
Councilman Satterley?
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Kluot?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
No.
Councilman Cagnolotti?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
And the chair votes no. I would have certainly liked to have continued the discussion.
Okay.
7-3.
Okay, so that is postponed indefinitely, and we will thank everyone again for being here and being part of this discussion. I think it was wonderfully healthy. And then we will move on to item number 9. Ordinance to declare surplus 2 York chillers from Lamar Dixon Expo Center.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Lawler. We're watching everyone file out the door.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Cagnolotti. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 10, authorization to acquire approximately 5.5 acre tract of land for $450,000 plus the cost of closing, being the undeveloped portion of Lot 1B and being situated in the northwest 1/4 of Section 33 T9S dot R3E SED, east of the Mississippi River, City of Gonzales, State of Louisiana, said property being adjacent and contiguous to the Ascension Parish Government Campus. Said purchase to be funded by $225,000 from the general fund, $225,000 from Sales Tax District 1, sinking fund from excess collections and court filing fees as provided by Louisiana Revised Statutes 13-996-69. Mr. Matassa and Mr. Jaffici.
Mr. Chavis is going to explain the situation to y'all, and then we'll answer any questions.
I do have a plat here, if you'd like to see it, but I'm pretty sure you are all familiar with, not sure quite how this works, actually. Pretty familiar with the property. We're talking about the property that's belongs currently to Mr. Esquivel, and it's adjacent to the current courthouse, proposed courthouse site. Some time ago, we began discussing the possibility of purchasing the property with the property owner, knowing that, just to open discussions for that, knowing that it was kind of a natural expansion, potential future expansion for the parish facilities. But more recently, we began to look at it as a potential need that could even reduce the cost of building the courthouse facility. One of the things that's required, of course, is mitigating the stormwater, adding retention and mitigating the stormwater impacts from the courthouse property itself. The courthouse property is below the is lower than the property that the parish administration building sits on. A considerable amount of fill would have to be brought in to raise the floor level, the finished floor level of the courthouse to the same level as the parish administration building. Without getting into a lot of detail, that requires mitigation on the site.
So the civil engineers got together, the design, the team working for the architect, Grace Bear. We all met a couple of times and discussed the possibilities and discussed the possibility of the impacts of purchasing that adjacent property. The adjacent property has an existing pond, retention pond on it that was sized for development of that property. The property was never developed, and so the pond's still there for that size. The design of the courthouse would require, if we didn't have that adjacent property, it can be done. I don't want to mislead anyone into thinking that it couldn't be done. It can be done. There would have to be 2 separate retention ponds on the property, and it's marginal. The solution is marginal. The civil engineers looked at it and believed it's possible that we'd have to add some more exotic measures to be able to solve the problem on the property. It can be done, but it might be more costly than we'd like to see. So we looked at the possibility of enlarging the retention pond on the adjacent property if we had that option. And a couple things happened. One, we solved the retention problem without having to use any property on the courthouse property. In fact, that could be some green space instead of, or even additional parking if we needed it, or building expansion if we needed that. So we could expand the retention pond in the adjacent property to solve our problem on this property. A couple of things happen as a result of that. One, we can use the fill from expanding that retention pond onto the courthouse property. The savings that would result from using the fill is a savings in the reduction of haul distance from hauling in the fill from some other site. So the estimate that we came up with was a savings of about $80,000 to $100,000 in just the haul cost alone. If a more exotic solution was required for retention on the courthouse site without that adjacent property, it would be more costly. With the adjacent property, that problem goes away. We also it also gives us a better assurance that we're properly handling the flow that's coming through that property from the south. It all goes through there into New River, through the school, high school, and everything else, through culverts under East Worthy. So a lot of problems get resolved with the purchase of the property. I personally think it's a very good move for the parish. We haven't looked at this in great detail, just enough detail to be able to bring to you this situation and say, we recommend that you seriously consider this. We think it's a good deal. I'm happy to go into more technical details if you'd like to, but that's the gist of it.
So we'll open the floor for questions. Mr. Todd Lambert.
Mr. Gasper, how big a piece of property is this?
It's almost 5 acres, I think, 4.5. 5.5.
And that is market value on that property? Was that appraised?
I think it was appraised, Kenny, at $500,000?
It was appraised a little higher than what we paying for it. The gentleman asked for more, and then we negotiated, and he came down to $450,000, which basically that's what he's got in that part of it. He owns all those front buildings also. And one thing that Gasper left out is, in the back, we're going to do secure parking for the judges and whoever needs security, and we'll barely use that property to possibly get 2 more exits to get them out of there instead of just going to Worthy. They'll barely hit 2 different areas, which would be 44 and then Hamilton Street also.
Right, so they can come through the subdivision.
One other question, I guess.
Yes.
They have to build this courthouse, and they had to supply the dirt or whatever that it needed.
Correct.
Wouldn't this come from the funding from the courthouse instead of private funding from the parish government?
They have like 300 right now. And we didn't want to deplete it all, so we talked about 225 and 220. Putting up. Then the property would be all ours. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you, guys.
Sure. Mr. Kluwat.
Gasper, thank you. I don't see losing this opportunity to expand and grab that within one complex for our ability to grow in the future,
I agree.
you know. And it has rear access.
Yeah, one thing Mr. Matas mentioned I failed to is that it would provide a more secure road inlet from Burnside as opposed to off of East Worthy to escort prisoners, for judges and other people to come into the secure parking behind the courthouse. So it's another advantage.
Yes, and I'm in favor of this, based on the fact that we just don't get this opportunity to grab. So
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman Aaron Lawler. Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much. Item number 11, approval of a cooperative endeavor agreement by and between the Road Lighting District Number 6 and the City of Gonzales, whereby Road Lighting District Number 6.
Motion.
There you go.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Turner, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. And following Travis's lead, item number 13, amendment number 1, BFI Waste Systems of Louisiana, LLC, to increase the not-to-exceed amount of the contract by an additional $10,000 to a not-to-exceed amount of $30,000. Ron?
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman Satterley. Any questions? Mr. Dawson?
I need to recuse myself. I'm in some negotiations with BFI on their permit renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Any others? Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you. Item number 13A, Mr. Daniel. I need you to state that project since I do not have any info on that on this agenda.
This would be the, Madam Chairwoman, thank you. Council members, thank you. This is the approval of amendment number 6 for the Ascension Parish Sewer Program for Engineering Service. It is the CDBG project in the Hillaryville-Darrow area. That project has been delayed several times. We bid it out once and the bids all came in higher. We have been able to, we're on the track to acquire the piece of property that we need to acquire. We need to move a little money from the right-of-way into the engineering, $26,000 to get the bid documents ready to go. And so that's what this amendment does. It moves.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Johnson, a second by Councilman Cagnalotti. Any question? Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Daniel, could you, just a little housekeeping matter, so to add an agenda item, it should be the reason that we added it to the agenda needs to be stated. So is it because of it was scheduled to go on utilities?
It was scheduled to go on utilities.
And the meeting was canceled?
Clerical error.
So I just like to make sure that we put that in a minute.
Take full responsibility for it.
We're not worried about the responsibility. We just need to have that reason.
Yeah. And that was going to be my comment, since I'm chairman of utilities, is that we will not have a utilities meeting tonight due to administrative.
I thank the council for that. If y'all been here, this project's been lingering around for many years, and thank God we're going to bid.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right. Monthly contract report, Ms. Sandra.
Good evening. You have before you the list of all contracts that were entered into in the month of July. Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions on that contract list? All right.
Thank you.
Then we will move along. Thank you, Ms. Sandra. The sales and use tax report, Ms. Gwen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You have before you your regular sales and use tax report.
This is collections for the month of June based on May sales. And you can easily see that the monthly comparisons are mostly flat for all of our 3 districts that have sales taxes. The year-to-date figures are still lagging compared to 2017. The budget comparisons are still positive. And you can quickly look over the charts, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions? All righty. Thank you very much, Ms. Gwynn. Now, on to number 16, the revenue and expenditure report.
Good evening. Before you, the monthly reports for June 2018. Revenues are at 40.13%. Expenditures are at 42.57% at 50% of the year. Page 3 are charts that compare year-to-date revenue and expenditure for both operating and capital to the budget. Page 4 and 5 gives a brief explanation of the funds that are highlighted on page 1 and 2 that are under the budget for revenues and over the budget for expenditures by 5% or more. And the last page reflects checks issued in June that were over $100,000, and the total of the checks were $2,429,564.72. Once you review the report, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions, gentlemen? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 17. The bid items. To accept the lowest responsive bid. Ms. Jones.
Good evening. On July 10, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for the re-roofing of Ascension Parish West Bank Human Resources, the Armory, and East Bank Courthouse. After review, the Ascension Parish Purchasing Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Expert Maintenance and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this project.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, second by Councilman Cagnalotti. Any objections? Well, let me ask first. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item B.
On July 11, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 4 bids for bituminous mixture for hot application asphalt. After review, the Purchasing Department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest bid from Barber Brothers Contracting and R.J. Dago and Son Contractors, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So moved, Madam
Have
Chairman.
a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman John Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objection? Mr. President.
I just want to let y'all know the reason we got 2 companies, they both bid the same. And I asked O'Neill, what do you do? And he said, the law says you flip a coin. So what I did, we contacted both companies because plants don't open every day. So having 2 companies is really good. So both of them said that they would do it dual. So it's good for Ascension Parish. That's why we did it.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On July 12, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 5 bids for mosquito control chemicals. After review, the Purchasing Department and Mosquito Control recommend accepting the lowest responsive bids and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for these chemicals. The chemical awards are to Univor USA, Adapco Incorporated, Clark Mosquito, Go-Bear Oil Company, and Target Specialty Products.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd
Second.
Lambert, a second by Councilman Satterley. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On July 11, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 5 bids for galvanized and asphalt-coated corrugated pipe. After review, the purchasing department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Colburn's Incorporated, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So,
Have a motion by Councilman Satterly, a second by Councilman Johnson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On July 11, 2018, the purchasing department received 6 bids for corrugated polyethylene pipe, Sherlock, reducing tees and fittings. After review, the purchasing department and Public Works recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Core and Main, and to authorize the parish president to enter into
So
any
moved.
applicable.
Motion by Mr. Dawson. Second by Mr. Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On July 31st, 2018, the purchasing department received 5 bids for 3M traffic control signs, materials, and supplies. After review, Department of Public Works recommend accepting the lowest responsive bids and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material. Companies: Traffic Control, Osborne Associates, Blacktop Industries, and Vulcan Incorporated.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert and a second by Councilman Bill Dawson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Last one. On July 6, 2018, the purchasing department received 11 statements of qualification for A&E services for Station 30 Training Room Addition. After review, the Engineering Selection Committee recommends presenting the 3 highest-ranked proposals for the Parish Council's review and selection. The highest-ranked proposals were submitted by Meyer Engineers, Domain Architect, and MB Design Consultant. Once awarded, to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service. The budget was $75,000.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we award the contract to Domain. Second.
I have a motion to award to Domain, a second to from Mr. Cagnalotti. Any objections to that?
Discussion?
Any
Okay.
discussion?
Yep.
Yes, I'm sorry I had to take a quick break, but we had the same latitude. We'd worked
Absolutely.
with the San Elmo Fire Department, so District 1. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all the job y'all doing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion, a second. Any other questions
Yes.
or comments? Mr. Dawson.
I just wanted to take a minute and thank Ms. Shivers and her crew because, you know, I heard 5 and 6 bidders. I heard 11 respondents. Those are numbers I love to hear. And I've talked about it the other way when we only had 1 or 2, but it's a great job.
Thank you very much. Mr. Satterly.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just want the record to reflect the reason I made this motion. Looking at the score sheet, there were 5 individuals on the selection committee that scored the 11 individuals that applied. And what essentially happened is we had Meyer, Domain, and the third company in a statistical dead heat. In fact, the difference between Meyer and Domain being 410 and 406 respectively, if you divide that by the 5 judges, it gives you an 82 versus an 81.2 mean, which is less than a 1% difference. As I always do, I perform statistics. It was not statistically real, so therefore more important to me, and since the experts could not tell this council, that they felt one could do the job better than the other, I thought it'd be best that we listen to our fire chief, who asked that we can give all due consideration to Domain.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Sadler. I think that was general consensus. Do we have any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned. Second.
Happy birthday, John.
You don't have to.